Okay, so topic 2 of B1, organisation, and this is mainly about how cells are built up into bigger structures that work together called organs and organ systems, and then some of the main organ systems in the body with the digestion and circulatory system, and then some of the health issues and how those systems can be affected, and then moving on to plant organs and plant systems. So, to start with, we move from the last topic down here. We have cells in our body, and all living things, multicellular, are made out of cells. And if you get loads of cells of the same type, group of cells, they form a tissue. So we have muscle cells here at the bottom. There's one muscle cell. Then it makes a muscle tissue. Muscle tissue might work with other tissues, such as connective tissue, etc., in an organ like the heart. And then organs work together in an organ system. And then all of our organ systems work together to make us, the organism. So we have a digestive system. So in the digestive system, we'll have many main organs, such as the mouth, the stomach, the intestines, etc., all working together in one system. But just a digestive system on its own wouldn't be much good. So make sure you can put those in order of size and you know how they're arranged. So very quickly, you should be able to do that first one. Organize them in order of size. Pause here and just do that. And then write down what each word means. Check your answers. Hopefully that's fine. And then moving on to the digestive system. So, in the digestive system, we start here. You put your food in the mouth, where it's chewed up, mixed with some enzymes and liquid. You swallow it down your esophagus. So the food has moved down now through here into your stomach, where more enzymes and liquid and acid are added to break down protein. So it's in our stomach. It moves from our stomach into here, the small intestine. So now it's gone through here and it's going all around the 6 meters of the small intestine. And as it's going, it's being digested continually and broken down. And eventually it will end up getting to the large intestine, working its way around this great big loop, and then down to the rectum. So it goes through the large intestines, and then it's stored in the rectum here until it passes through the anus when you have a poop. So, which bits haven't I circled? Well, the liver makes bile, stored in the gallbladder, and then that's added onto the food in the small intestine. The food doesn't actually go through that. And similarly, the pancreas here, that I've just ticked those three, the pancreas makes enzymes that are added onto the food. Now, the table over here shows 3 main enzymes. So we have protease enzymes here. Protease break down proteins into amino acids, absolutely essential knowledge. Lipase enzymes break down fats or lipids into fatty acids and glycerol. And amylase is one of the carbohydrates, so it's actually probably better if you learn that term as well. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates break down carbohydrates into simple sugars like glucose. So, how do enzymes work? Well, reactions happen anyway, but if we have a chemical that speeds up reactions, it's called a catalyst. So that word's there. I'm just going to swap, to my colour pen. So here we have a catalyst. Because an enzyme is inside a living cell, it's a biological catalyst. So it's a catalyst and it speeds up the rate of reaction. So here, these blue particles in the diagram, I have to swap again. So these blue particles are the enzymes and they have a shape that exactly fits what they join with. And by joining with it, they make the reaction much, much faster. So this one here, the lock and key model, 2 things, this red and yellow chemical, are combining with the enzyme here and they're making a new product. They've been joined together and that reaction happens loads faster because the enzyme is present. That enzyme molecule can then go around and it can be reused again and again. Here we have a different type of enzyme. This time it's taking this sucrose. Again, it fits into the active site, and then it breaks it down into fructose and glucose. So it's breaking down a carbohydrate into simple sugars. So this would be a good example of a carbohydrate enzymes. So what do you need to know about enzymes? Enzymes make reactions faster. They are very specific. They only fit a certain shape. So here they are very specific. That means we need lots of different enzymes for lots of different chemical reactions. This enzyme here, the sucrase enzyme, which is a carbohydrate, this enzyme only fits this molecule. So we need different enzymes for different reactions because they're specific. The other important thing about enzymes is enzymes have that, as you can see here in this bit, enzymes have this shape that allows them to fit exactly to the substrate. And when you heat up reactions, they get faster and faster because the particles are moving around quicker. So it says here they're affected by temperature. Increasing the temperature will make the reaction faster because there's more collisions between the enzyme and the substrate, these two. However, if the temperature goes too high, because enzymes are made of protein, enzymes are denatured. And all that means is the high temperature has meant that the molecules have changed shape. So here we have the same enzyme, but it's changed shape. It no longer fits with the substrate, so it loses its ability to be a catalyst. And then we talked about enzymes. We talked a minute ago about liver making bile. Bile helps to, number one, neutralize the acid from the stomach so that that acid isn't going through down into our intestines. And also, fats aren't easy to digest because they aren't soluble. So you can emulsify the fat, which means you can break the fat up into little tiny pieces, and then the enzymes can work on it because they have a bigger surface area. So bile has two jobs. Make sure you make a note of those. Okay. Can you name all those parts? Make sure you can. Pause it, just go through them quickly, and then check the answers in a minute. And then some questions here. And then when you've done those and pause them, remember you can go backwards and forwards. You can then check through your answers. Okay, on to the next section. So circulation. Okay, you won't need to be able to draw this diagram. What you do need to do is be able to label it. Best way of doing the heart, I think, is to actually learn where the blood comes from, where it goes to, etc. So the first stage, blood comes back to the heart and it's just been around the body. So I'm just going to write LP. It is low in pressure because it's lost all its pressure going around the body, and it is low in oxygen, LP and LO. It dribbles back through here and goes into the right side of the heart. So it goes into this top chamber, the atrium, the right atrium, and then it goes through some valves down into the bottom chamber called the right ventricle. And when the heart beats, first of all, blood is squeezed from the atrium down to the ventricle. And the second part of the heartbeat is the blood is then squirted up here through the pulmonary artery and it goes off to the lungs. Why is it going to the lungs? It's going to the lungs because it was low in oxygen. Then, when it comes back from the lungs, it's now lost its pressure again. So here, the blood is coming back into the pulmonary vein and it is high in oxygen, but it's low in pressure. So the reason it comes back to the heart for a second push is to get the pressure back. And what you'll see here is this wall here on the left hand side of the heart is much thicker, and that's because it's not just pumping into the lungs this time. This is going to pump to every corner of the body. So this much thicker wall, more muscly over here to pump there. So the blood goes in here. It's now oxygenated blood. It's got its oxygen, it just needs some pressure into the top, into the atrium, down to the ventricle, and then when it pumps, it's going to cross over a pipe over here at the back, and it's going to go into the main artery in the body, which is up here at the top, the aorta. So those four blood vessels. It comes in through the vena cava after being around the body, goes out through the pulmonary artery, comes back through the pulmonary vein, and goes out again through the aorta. So it's called the double circulation system. The blood is going through the heart twice. The other thing is, just over here at the side here, one of the branches off the aorta is delivering blood to the muscle of the heart, so coronary arteries. They are supplying the heart itself with its oxygen so that it can beat. Those are the ones that if they get blocked, if they get clogged up, etc., they can cause heart disease in those coronary arteries, or they can even cause heart attacks or strokes. So when the blood gets to the lungs, it passes through these blood capillaries and it picks up in the red blood cells oxygen. And here's a little air sac, an alveolus inside the lung. Oxygen is moving into the blood and carbon dioxide moving out. Hence the O2 here with the arrow going in and the carbon dioxide out. So what do you need to know about the lungs in order to label them? There was that esophagus that you were eating through. Here we breathe in through the trachea. It goes down a tube called a bronchus, and then it breaks down into loads of little tubes all over your lungs called bronchioles. And at the end of the bronchioles, there's the bronchioles. At the end of the bronchioles, you get little air sacs called alveolus. You have millions and millions of alveolus inside each lung. The blood vessels themselves carrying our blood around the body. I said before, the artery here, and you can read the bits underneath it, it's got a thick muscle layer and a small gap in the middle, a small lumen. That's because we're trying to keep the blood under high pressure, so it rushes into all of our muscles and all around our body. When it loses that pressure, it travels in a vein and it's now got LP, low pressure. The arteries are carrying blood with lots of O2, so I'm going to put high oxygen, and the veins carrying it back to the heart, low oxygen. The oxygen is being used up around the body. Because there's high pressure, we don't need valves in the arteries. So arteries have no valves. However, veins have valves. When you get inside a tissue, if we have here at the top, let's say there's an artery arriving and there's a vein leaving, in between there, this actually splits into loads and loads and loads of branches of little tubes. And the very smallest tubes, microscopic tiny little blood vessels just bigger than a red blood cell, those are called capillaries. So they're the connection between an artery over this side and a vein over this side. They're only one cell thick, and very quickly oxygen can move out of them, sugar can move out of it, so we can supply all the cells in our body with oxygen, sugar and all the nutrients and goodness it needs, because these are very leaky capillaries in the tissues. Okay, so the blood itself, made out of just more than half of it is just blood plasma, the liquid where sugars and all the other things are dissolved in, and about 45%, so a large amount of it taken up, made of red blood cells to carry oxygen, with less than 1% being the white blood cells and platelets. White blood cells for fighting infection and platelets for clotting the blood. So the platelets bits down here, the bottom, tiny fragments of cells clumped together and help clot it. The white blood cells as part of our immune system making antibodies and eating, phagocytosis or engulfing, they've used the word here. Different pathogens within the body. And red blood cells themselves, so no nucleus, so they actually have more space to carry oxygen. The name of the red chemical is hemoglobin, and hemoglobin is designed to carry oxygen because oxygen isn't very soluble. So what's the role of the red blood cell? It is to carry oxygen around the body. How does it do that? Well, it uses a chemical hemoglobin to do that, and it has a large surface area, which means it can quickly drop off and pick up oxygen. Okay, problems with our arteries, etc., especially those ones where I was saying earlier, coronary blood vessels, so blood vessels to the heart itself. Here is a diagram of a normal artery. Nice big wide tube, blood flowing through nice and easy, lovely jubbly. Arteriosclerosis is when we've got fats and cholesterol blocking up part of this artery. So here's somebody with mid-stage arteriosclerosis. There's fat on the inside wall here, and what it means is the blood needs to squeeze through a smaller gap. Here, blood is going through a really small gap. So this person would need really high blood pressure, and that's one of the signs of it, really high blood pressure, because obviously the blood's trying to squeeze past these. The other thing is sometimes you could clot there, and that could clot and cause a heart attack. What do we do about it? Well, quite a few people, after having small heart attacks, etc., they have a stent fitted. Now, a stent is a way of, you put in a little mesh, there's the end product, a little mesh tubing opening up the artery. How do you do it? You put a very fine needle into that artery, drop off the mesh tubing, and then you inflate a balloon with water inside it. It pushes it out to the outside edges, and then you remove the needle and the balloon and the water. So stents can be fitted into your heart and can stay there for years and years, opening up those arteries again. So it's not inside the heart, but it's in the arteries going to your heart. And the other thing you can do is a group of chemicals called statins, and they lower your cholesterol levels. So they lower the fat levels that your liver makes. So actually it doesn't build up in the first place. So after you've had a heart attack, or if you have really bad arteriosclerosis, if you're late condition coronary heart disease, you may well have stents fitted, and then you'd be on statins for the rest of your life to keep your cholesterol level down. On top of that, you'd need to follow a healthy diet, one with low cholesterol or the right cholesterol in it. Heart valves. Here's a perfect, lovely heart valve. These diagrams here are valves. The valves are there for one reason. They help the blood flow in one direction. Obviously, that's your favourite band as well, so that'll help you remember it. The blood flows in one direction. However, if the valves become faulty, then blood could flow back the wrong direction. Blood could flow the wrong way out of the heart. So, how would that make you feel? Short of breath, because your heart's having to work hard and not getting the oxygen around. Blood could be building up in your ankles and feet rather than being pumped around. Feeling tired from a lack of oxygen. And what can cause it? Some people are born with problems with their valves. Other people have the damages caused as you get older and older. So this bit really is looking at artificial hearts and heart transplants, heart failure. You just need the main bits really. The fact that we do have artificial hearts, which can be put in place of the real one. We do have heart bypass surgery. We do have a heart transplant from somebody else who has died. So the only issues with those are, for each one, what are the advantages and disadvantages? And with the heart transplant, there's always going to be a risk that your body rejects it. So, and you can get quite ill whilst your immune system is suppressed while you're getting your transplant. Okay. What's the name of the pipes? What's the name of the four chambers? So chambers wise, you've got B, C, G, and H. Can you name them? And then tube wise, you've got the main vein coming back from the body, the artery off to the lungs, the vein from the lungs, and then the main artery in the whole body. You want to be able to really quickly remember those accurately. So that might be something you take a photo of and then practice over time, or do a simple diagram. You'll find one online if you need one. Okay, I'll just leave you with those questions. Pause it. Quite easy. You don't have to write answers. You can just check through in your head and see, do I know this? Do I know this? Do I know this? And maybe do revision on the bits you don't know. And then you can go through these at your own pace with the answers. I'll go through it quite quickly. So that's that one. remembering that you can pause it whenever you want. Okay, non-communicable diseases. So communicable diseases, and you do more about this in the infection response units. I'm not going to say much about them now. We're only really interested at this stage in the non-communicable diseases. Those are not caused by infection and they cannot be spread. These are ones caused by your lifestyle. So these ones we're interested in, the non-communicable diseases, causing 70% of all deaths globally, unlike diseases obviously causing a lot less. Of those, cardiovascular diseases are the major one, followed by cancers and respiratory diseases, with diabetes here in fourth place. And in terms of cost, well, you've got all the healthcare problems and research and all the equipment, all really expensive treatments for these conditions. And then you've got the cost to the person themselves, early death, lower quality of life, the families of sufferers, etc. So just be aware of some of the consequences of it. It's not just heart disease, it's what's the financial cost of heart disease to the health service and taxpayers in a country, and what's the cost to the individuals themselves. So in terms of these non-communicable diseases, ones that etc. are brought on by your own lifestyle, here's a list of things that you should be able to give a couple of examples of how could a person's lifestyle put them at risk of getting a disease like this. And here are some of the chemicals that we take into our bodies as part of that lifestyle: the high fat, high sugar diet, cigarette smoke, alcohol, living in a polluted inner city area, and then some of the building materials around us maybe having radiation and asbestos in them. So it's usually seen as identify the hazard, what's the risk of that hazard, what harm will it do? And that's where you want to sort of sequence them, and you might do that over the coming slides. So a diet high in saturated fats, so animal fats, solid fats, that's the ones that can build up in your arteries and cause arteriosclerosis, that damage to the inside of those arteries, and therefore leading to heart attacks. Smoking, you've got carbon monoxide, stopping your body having so much oxygen, so it reduces it, your heart has to work harder, and nicotine being a stimulant, raising your heart rate, making it work harder again. And then you've got things like lack of exercise. So if you've got a poor diet, and if you're a smoker, and if you don't exercise very much, your heart is not going to be in a very good condition whatsoever. But then the opposite is true, that if you've got a healthy diet and you're a non-smoker and you do lots of exercise, you'll have a really healthy heart. Obesity, linked to diet as well. Obesity type 2 is not the one that you inherit or is due to genetics. Diabetes type 2 is caused because the cells in your body are less sensitive to insulin. They've basically been overworked, so your body can't control it. One of the main causes for that is diet, and more recently it's reversible. If you take on a very healthy diet and reduce the amount of fat and sugars in your body can start responding again to insulin, and you can reverse diabetes type 2, especially the earliest you catch it. Liver disease and liver damage, mainly linked with alcohol, and alcohol also affecting the way your brain works. And then lung diseases, grouped together as a term COPD, are a group of lung diseases. The main ones, bronchitis over here. Here's a normal bronchiole, and here is a mucus-filled infected, somebody suffering from bronchitis. Emphysema. Here is a normal alveoli, and here's somebody with emphysema. Now, if you're a smoker, you're much more likely to get bronchitis and cause more infections. If you're a smoker, you're much more likely to develop emphysema, same as if you live in polluted air, etc. So smoking is seen as the main cause. 9 out of 10 of these respiratory diseases are linked to the person being a smoker. Again, good reasons not to be a smoker. Smoking is also the highest risk factor for lung cancer, which is one of the most common cancers given the number of people smoking. And symptoms: persistent cough, frequent chest infections, coughing up blood, breathlessness, and you can lose your lung. You may have to have a lung removed, or you may have to have a section of lung removed, or it could be the death of you, literally. So, smoking and alcohol in terms of what effect on newborn babies. Well, alcohol, it says here, scientists are still unsure about how much alcohol is safe to drink, etc. But obviously, alcohol and the effect it can have on fetal alcohol syndrome, but generally facial abnormalities, poor growth, learning difficulties, and all because the brain and the body hasn't developed properly because it's been poisoned a little bit, as is the liver in its development. And smoking, what's going around the baby's body is carbon monoxide instead of where it should be oxygen the whole time. Cuts down the amount of oxygen, obviously a slower development, smaller babies. Is seen as one of the main risks of causing miscarriages, causing premature births, and sudden infant death syndrome. So not ideal. And a carcinogen, here, this word, a carcinogen is anything that causes cancer. So here we've got the tobacco smoke causing cancers, alcohol causing cancers. Occupational carcinogens, so for example, asbestos used to be a building material that was quite popular, and now it's banned in most places. And when you have a house redone, if they find asbestos, it's got to be taken away carefully by people in protective suits because it has such a high risk as a carcinogen. And radiation, working with x-rays, working with radon gas in different workplaces, etc. Again, radiation, a carcinogen, increases the risk of you getting a cancer. In terms of cancers, benign tumours are a lump growing out of control, usually stops at a certain size, does not invade other parts of the body. And this is the key bit. Benign doesn't mean it's not cancerous. A benign tumour is cancerous, a benign tumour is here. It's in a capsule. It could cause a lump under your skin. I know quite a lot of dogs, when they get older, get these under the skin, but actually it doesn't spread around their body, hence why it's benign. Whereas a malignant tumour, not only does it cause damage to an area, it then invades neighbouring tissues, spreads to different parts of the bodies, and you can start off more tumours. So malignant seen as a much, much worse type of tumour than benign. This is the cancerous one. Okay. As again, I'll just go through these questions and answers very quickly on the slides because you can pause it as you need to and just go through them in your head. Okay, here we are again, but this time plants. Cells in plants make up tissues, make up organs, make up organ systems, make up organisms. No different from animals. So, on the right hand side over here, epidermis is outside layers. Specialized cells here, the palisade, that's a tissue there that's specialized. Spongy mesophyll in a leaf, specialized. Xylem carrying water up the plant, and phloem carrying glucose around the plant. And the meristem is the growth at the roots and the tips, so the growth areas of a plant. So looking at the leaf structure, here at the top, this bit is the palisade layer. Here's the spongy mesophyll underneath. Here's the epidermis as a coating. Here's large spaces for diffusion, and at the bottom surface, here's a gap, a stoma in the leaf surface, allowing carbon dioxide to get in and allowing oxygen to get out. Unfortunately, some water goes out as well, hence why plants also need a good supply of water all the time, because they're losing water through their leaves because they've got these holes called stoma. Specialised cells in plants. You've got guard cells around a stoma, opening and closing it as you need more carbon dioxide to go in, or when you want to prevent water loss. And we've got root hair cells with a really large surface area, so they can pick up more water from the soil over this large surface area rather than just being flat. Xylem is the movement of water up. So transpiration, this word at the top here, absolutely essential you get this as a sort of system. Transpiration is the movement of water into a cell by osmosis. It goes up the cell through the xylem and it goes out of the leaves through the stoma. That is called, that's called the transpiration stream. All three of those, movement of water in by osmosis to the roots, up through the xylem and out through the stoma and the leaves. Translocation, the leaves are making all the sugar. Those sugars need now to be delivered all around the plant. Just like sugar in your body needs to go to every cell for energy, these poor little roots down here need some sugar. The phloem carries the sugar round and round and round and round the plant, dropping it off wherever it's needed or storing it. Okay, back to the questions. Have a quick look. And that's it for organisation. So next time, infection and response. Good luck.